Every generation is defined by their cars. Me, I learned to drive in an Ambassador. My first car was a Zen. Back then, we lusted after the Sierra. We went bananas over the S-Team. But none of those cars are what you would call icons. The Honda City though, now here's a bona fide icon. 5 generations, 20 years. In fact, the City is the second longest running nameplate in India. Second only to the Mercedes-Benz E-Class. We've now got the 5th generation City. But does it still have the genes of that iconic first generation City? Does it still enthuse the enthusiasts as much as we went crazy over this first generation VTEC? That's what we are here to find out. Before we unleash all those VTEC horses, let me remind you to subscribe to the channel and stay notified of all the cool videos that we're doing. This channel is all about the thrill of driving, and performance is our mantra. So, which is quicker, the old City or the new City? Best way to do that is a straight up drag race. Now, it's got a bit of rain, a little bit of drizzle, there's not much grip on the road, so it's the same for both. So that way, it's identical. So, aircon off, traction control off, first gear, yep, windows up. Well, the new one is quicker. The new City outdrags the old City. That is the pace of progress. 13 more horsepower, a ton more torque, yep, and I think better tires. So now swap into the old City, so that the driver skill is the same level. All right, let's see what this old baby is made of. Old City, new City. The new City, it launches quicker, and that's the thing. That's modern tire technology for you. This old City is quick, but the new City with bigger tires, it launches better, and that's where it has a head start in terms of the launch times. So yeah, new City 20 years later is quicker than the old very first City VTEC. There are very few old cars that can put a smile on your face when you're accelerating. Of course, they give you that old car feel and smell and memories, but accelerating and putting a smile on your face, that's very rare. Back in those days, there was the Mitsubishi Lancer and the Honda City. I'm talking about the non-VTEC version, and we took them both to the racetrack, and the Lancer was actually quicker in the slalom, but the City, because of its more power, was quicker round the track in terms of the lap time. But then the VTEC came, and then it upped the stakes. MRF, they got a bunch of VTECs, went rallying with it. The VTEC won everything. And the thing that struck was not just the sheer speed, the sheer good-looking cars that they were, but also the reliability. They didn't have to change drive shafts, they didn't have to change stuff. Those cars just lasted and lasted despite getting the kind of abuse that top-level rally drivers put their cars through. And even today, 20 years later, this City, it still continues to do duty on racetracks as well as on rally tracks. In fact, on the racetrack, Joel Joseph of Race Concepts, he's turbocharged this B15 engine, and that car in the hands of Arjun Balu set a lap record just before this lockdown kicked in. It set the outright lap record for touring cars at the MMRT. So this engine is a beast. So this engine, it's the first VTEC. Now what does VTEC do? Basically, this B15 engine, it is a single overhead cam engine, but it's got 2 cams. So above 4,500, 4,800 RPM, the second cam engages, and that is like a hot cam. So you get that kick just above 4,500, around 5,000 RPM, you get that kick, and that kick is for performance. So VTEC on this engine is purely for performance, and it is like an on-off switch. So you accelerate 3.5, 4,000, 4,500, and then you get that kick where VTEC comes on, like they say, VTEC kicked in yo, and it really flies. This is such a quick car. It's a light car also. So in terms of the specs, 106 bhp, 970 kilos, so under a ton for this car. So light, powerful, you step on it, VTEC kicks in, and it revs all the way up to 7,100, 7,200 RPM. It flies. Of course, this is a 20-year-old car, so there is a ton of body roll. The body control is nowhere on the levels of the cars that we know today, but the brakes are sharp and it is effing quick. Now, as you can hear, obviously this car is not stock. Now, nobody would really own a City VTEC unless they were a pure enthusiast. So it's rare that you would find a bog stock City VTEC. This car doesn't really have much. It's got a cold air BMC intake and it's got an exhaust, and that's about it. And for a 20-year-old car, I think we can give it that advantage. It only enhances the joy of this engine, the enthusiasm of this engine. And to think a 20-year-old car can still be caned like this, it's a testament to Honda's reliability, their quality, their longevity. Manush, who owns this car, he bought this car for 1.5 lakh rupees, spent around 50-60,000 bucks on just doing it up over the past 2 years. It still looks chaka-chak, like you could say in these parts. Looks really clean. There's no bodywork that's been done on it. The engine, it's still reliable. It's done 1.71 lakh kilometers, so it's done a lot of miles, but it continues to run flawlessly, reliably. Even the wipers work properly. He says that the parts, everything is available. So you can order it from any Honda dealer. They get the parts from Thailand. Thailand was the big market, continues to be the big market for the Honda City, and you get everything. Okay, parts are a little expensive now, but even the split bumpers, this car had the bumpers in 3 parts. So if you broke only one side, you just had to replace one, not the entire bumper. Even the brackets for those bumpers are available. So anything that you want for the City VTEC, everything is available, and of course for the other cities as well. So 2 decades ago, when the VTEC was launched, this was the most premium car in the country. Above this were only the Mercs, more expensive cars. So what did Honda do to make this look and feel premium on the inside? The center console, they painted it silver. They gave it this silver finish, and the headrest got these holes in it. That's it. That was the extent to which Honda went. Otherwise, everything else was the same. So the 1.3 City, the 1.5 City and this VTEC were almost the same. Oh, and it got on the outside these 14-inch alloys. Now 14-inch sounds like, no, what the hell am I talking about? Big deal about 14-inch wheels. But back then, everything else was on 13s, apart from I think the E-Class, which had 14. So when this came with 14-inch wheels, it was like, whoa! 14-inch wheels on a car, and it looked gorgeous as well. Then on the outside, it had that wing, that spoiler, and that was like, whoa, a car with a spoiler. The only other car with a spoiler was that Mitsubishi Lancer, the SFX, and that had a 1.5 VD engine. It was not quick. It handled very well, but it was not that quick. So here, spoiler, whoa, and then the exhaust, 2 exhaust tips, whoa, an enthusiast. For them, this was crazy. It was insane. It was also damn expensive. So no enthusiast could actually afford it. All enthusiasts still continue to buy Zens and at a pinch Esteems. So this was still very premium, very elite. So you would find uncles driving the City VTEC. But you saw City VTEC and you were like, whoa, this car, that's the shiz. Now obviously, this is a 2-decade-old car. So compared to new modern cars, it's not that safe. There is no ABS, there's no traction control, there is no ESP. Look at these A-pillars. This A-pillars, we used to say that the thin A-pillars gave excellent forward visibility. It does give excellent forward visibility, but it doesn't give great crash test results. The new City, it's got excellent crash test results. 5 stars on the Asian NCAP crash test rating, which is actually very good. But the thing that strikes you about this old City is how low you sit. You're practically sitting on the floor. The driving position of this car is unmatched by any new car, to be honest. Low, your legs outstretched, your arms outstretched. It's perfect. It's so tuned to just driving and driving fast. The visibility is phenomenal. No ABS, no electronics to save you from yourself. It's a pure mechanical car. Analog car? This is a pure analog car. How fast is the Hyper 16 engine? 0 to 100 in just under 10 seconds. This was such a quick car back in the day. We never experienced a sub 10 second 0 to 100 car. And I was in the passenger seat when we tested this at the VRD. This did 200 kilometers per hour, but this is the soft car, because back in the day cars were soft. Even now, ride quality is a big priority for car manufacturers, but back then all cars were soft. And that car on VRD's bankings bouncing away, I had that Datron test equipment on my lap. It kept going thabad at 200 kilometers per hour. I was frightened. My daylights were scared out of me. But we did 200 kilometers per hour because back then our road test editor and assistant editor, they were going at it with each other to get the better times on the car. So 9.8 or 9.9 seconds, 0 to 100, 200 and something top speed. It was a quick car, a rocket. And even today, even by today's standards, today's benchmarks, this is still a quick car. Recently, I did a test with a whole bunch of tuned City VTECs. The link is up here, so you can have a look at it. And the car, for I think 8 or 10 lakh rupees, you can almost get 400 horsepower. Obviously turbocharged, but you can get 400 horsepower out of this engine. And that just shows that how reliable Honda engines were. Back in those days, every single road test used to have the phrase, Honda, maker of the world's best engines. And it was true, because Honda engines, starting with the Splendor and here the VTEC, it was fantastic. Then we got the Accord and all those other cars. All of them had really fantastic engines. iVTEC is for economy. So this VTEC down the Hyper 16 is for performance. The iVTEC is for economy. So you get great mileage out of Honda Cities. And the Honda City has grown up, it's got more space, it's got more comfort. But does it have the genes of this car? Let's switch to that car and find out. So the new 5th generation Honda City. What does this motor feel like? And immediately you notice this one commonality between the two VTEC engines. It loves to rev, it loves to spin up, it enjoys banging against the rev limit. It revs almost up to 7,000, 7,100 RPM. And it's such a free spinning, eager engine. It enjoys revs and so light. And that's the characteristic of these Honda engines. They have this light flywheel, so the inertia is so little, it spins up eagerly and it's so refined. So you stick it in 4th gear at 1500 RPM and you can't hear the engine. There's no noise, there's no vibration, there is no harshness. This is butter smooth. And the other thing that is familiar from the very first VTEC is this gear shift. It is what they would call a hot knife slicing through butter. It's a cliched phrase which was used and abused back in the day, but it is a fact. Look at it, how smooth, how slick, the throws well judged. This is a beautiful gear shift. Obviously a lot of cars will be sold with the CVT, which I don't really like, but this manual gearbox, lovely. This L15 engine is different from the earlier one in the sense that this now has DOHC, so it's got dual overhead cams. Obviously all that is for economy and the BS6 emission norms, and above 3300 RPM the variable valve timing that kicks in and you get that power. Also, unlike the earlier VTEC, there's no step up in power. There's no like a switch that is activating where you get a boost in power. Here it is all linear, it is smooth, and obviously modern engines, you don't want that step up. Everybody is working towards more refinement and a smoother power delivery, and in that sense this engine does deliver on that. For years, tuners have been working on that 20-year-old Hyper 16 engine, but now I hear that a lot of tuners, a lot of racer boys have ordered this new City, obviously the pace version, because they don't need all this equipment and all of that for their race cars. But because now it has got dual overhead cams, there's a lot more that can be extracted out of this engine because it is got better breathing compared to that earlier engine. So now you would see a lot more of these Honda Cities in racing, and the reason why you will see them in racing is because of the reliability. These cars are extremely reliable. Have you ever heard of anybody complaining about the quality, that their City broke down? Never, you'll never hear that. And that's because these Japanese cars, they're engineered really well. So they might not feel that German solidity, but in terms of outright reliability, longevity, it will outlast everything else. These cars really do run and run. The enthusiasm of the engine, the slickness of the gearbox, all might remind you of that very first VTEC. But the rest of the car is a testament to the pace of progress. There's so much more space in this. You sit so much higher, which I don't really like that much. In fact, compared to that earlier VTEC, this is almost like you're sitting in an SUV, but you get a good view out ahead. The A-pillars, they are thick, and that delivers that great crash test rating, 5 stars in the Asian NCAP crash test rating. You get a lot of equipment, touchscreen, digital cockpit, sunroof, nice wide comfy leather seats, lot of space at the back, great ride quality. You can go over bad roads without worry about the nose touching or the underbelly grounding out on speed breakers or poor roads. This car is better in every objective sense, considerably better. It is 20 years newer and it definitely feels 20 years better. And finally, what was the one thing that the City always did? It always went to the top of its class. It always was the bestseller. It always outsold its rivals. Of course, recently the Ciaz has been selling more, but the City has been the better car all throughout, and there is no question. Even today with the Vento TSI, the Rapid TSI, the new Verna with the turbo engine and the DCT gearbox, all of those cars are still not as good as the City. In fact, we did a comparison test with the Vento. There's a link out here so you can have a look at that. The Vento is quicker, that turbocharged engine is got more eagerness, more power, but in every other objective sense, space, comfort, equipment, all of that, the City is still the benchmark. Over 5 generations and 20 years has not changed. The City continues to set the gold standard in this segment. Subscribe to the Evo India channel and hit the bell icon to keep pace with the thrill of driving.